Hi everyone, my name is Javi and I can draw, and this is going to be the last video about foreshortening. It is a very complicated subject and I think that it's going to take me a while to get the best out of this, but I think I have one more thing that I found out that I want to show you. So let's go! So now I want you to see this image that I did here. I practiced a bit and I did some image for foreshortening to get some better idea of the things that I discussed that I showed you on the other video. And now I believe that there's just one more thing that I want to show you. And if you had to tell me what is the most important thing that you are looking at in this image to learn about foreshortening, it is the floor. The floor and the perspective. It is. Because when you are going to be drawing someone, you're going to be drawing him or her in a context. It is not an empty context. This is going to be a subject in space, and that space has a camera angle and it also has a perspective. And in order to figure out what is the best way to foreshorten an arm and what it's going to be doing is to first figure out the space that this character is going to be extending their arm in. I know it sounds crazy, but what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to try to show you what I did in order to get this image. Now, I know that this is super sketchy and is not the best image in the world, and it probably has a lot of work to put in it. It is pretty sketchy, but still, it is a lot better than I was a week ago. And I think that with this, I can cover some of the most important things that I think that you have to take into consideration when you are going to foreshorten something. So I'm going to do this, and well, let's talk about this image a bit. So the first thing I did when I did this image was to draw an horizon line and a vanishing point that is going to be somewhere around here. As I told you before, it's pretty sketchy, but the base is there. And then what I thought was since I'm not going to be drawing this Spider-Man posing person in a vacuum, the most important thing that I could do was to find an anchor point to this perspective. And that's why I started actually with the hand. What I did was say the hand is going to be somewhere around here. So I did some kind of bulge here. And then I said well, if the hand is going to be kind of here, I want the head to be around here. And yes, I was winging it a bit. I was trying to just gesture it a bit to see what I could come up with. And then once I had this idea, this basic idea like this, I was well, okay, let's start to add some detail. Now regarding foreshortening, well, the head, if you already know how to draw a head, there are videos about it. If not, you can just go look at them. But then, once I have the head and once I have the hand, you just work the chest. That is going to be this cube-like shape. Yes, it's going to be working at an angle. It's going to go this way. But the most important thing that I wanted to show you is once you kind of have that, you know how to work the basic shoulder shape from that point. And then you do the same thing that you do whenever you want to draw and pose an arm and you're not foreshortening it. That is, just draw a line. Once you have the hand decided and once you have the shoulder decided, you just draw a line and try to get them both together. So once you have this, it gets super easy because this part, yes, now you can coil it because you know when the coil is going to end. And then for the rest of the arm, you can either coil it or you can use some volume here to get a better grasp of what you're not seeing because it's being covered by this part. So you can use the cylinder here. So there you have it. And for the rest of the body, I mean this arm, I just thought that I did the same thing. I first drew the hand. I thought like I want the hand to be around here. And yes, I started taking the perspective and camera angle into account to decide that I wanted the hand to be that small. And once you have the shoulder and once you have the hand, you just do the same thing. You can kind of do a cylinder here in a bit of perspective. And then you just join everything up. Not looking that bad, is it? Now, if I had to be honest with you, this leg here, I just improvised. I had no idea what I was doing. What I knew was that the furthest point was going to be the knee. So I started by just drawing the square that was going to represent the knee. And then I just started drawing some circle-like shapes that resemble a leg in order to get this right. And I was like, well, it doesn't look bad. And I just kept going. And by the time I was kind of happy with this, I kind of drew something resembling of a feet here, of a foot. It's not the best way. Sometimes it's going to be useful. It's not something technical. I know that I hated those tutorials that just winged it, but sometimes it's just a bit useful. If you know the human figure, you can just afford to do that. It's not the best way though. And with this leg, well, this leg is not actually really that foreshortened, so I just drew a leg, honestly. It's in a weird angle, I know. But still, there's not much perspective involved in this leg. So there you have it. And well, regarding foreshortening hands, you can tell by this hand. You can tell by this hand that I haven't quite got it right yet. But if I had to show you real quickly, I would be using this curve here on hand to get the pinky here. And then considering this is coming this way, you just coil the finger just a bit, and then you do the rest, and you know how it goes. And the thumb is something around here, I don't know. That is not what matters right now. What matters right now is keep thinking about this camera angle thing that I showed you on yesterday. Why am I talking about this? Because, well, I did these two figures. This one is at a mid distance and this one is like pretty far away. And the reason why I did those two is because I wanted to show you something else. What I wanted to show you with this particular character is that I did this, well, I did pretty much the exact same thing. I knew that the feet of the character was going to be here, and I knew it was going to be kind of tall, so I said like, well, the head is going to be here, the feet are going to be here, and then you just use the perspective, that vanishing point, to your advantage in order to get exactly what you want out of the character. And now, considering that it's at a longer distance and that it's farther away from the camera and it is not close to the camera, when I'm going to draw this hand, and it is like super sketchy and it is not the best hand, but when you're going to draw this hand, you know that you don't have to draw this massive hand, but you can take a distance from it and pretty much keep the proportions that you wouldn't use if you weren't foreshortening. The big problem comes when you get to this point where you have to fill this. And if I had to give you just one tip about hands, is to always try to make the wrists as small as possible when you're foreshortening, because if not, it will look like you actually forgot to draw the wrist and you just started the hand like around here in a thicker point. So you do something like this, and this was pretty much, well, you can tell by the sketch that this was pretty much coiled. And then I started to add a few corrections. But I first did the hand, then I did the shoulder, then I did everything else. And for the rest of this character, since this character is in perspective, you just have to obey the lines of the perspective. You know that this is going to be coming here. They're just guidelines on perspective. I know that I don't have videos on perspective, and you know, I should have done one first, but it is so boring to explain and I don't want to do it. I promise to do it one day, but just not today. And with this final character, I wanted to do also a Spider-Man-like pose, where if you take into account like the size of this hand and the size of the Spider-Man-like character's head here, you will see that the hand is actually huge compared to the head, and compared to the other hand as well. Like, this hand is so tiny compared to this hand if you measure them. So I wanted to emphasize the fact that the further away that the characters are from the camera and from the wide camera angle, that you can still do those crazy Spider-Man poses without having to draw like giant feet or whatever. So here I have it. This is like, well, it is still a pretty big foot, and I still had to do some corrections on it. But I first did the head. I kinda knew where, so I can start from somewhere. Then I did the arms because I liked this motion, and then I just drew this curve, this line of action here. And I thought like, well, if it's so far away from the camera, the foot is not going to be very big. And it isn't. In fact, it is the same size as this foot here, that is a lot further behind than this character. So this foot will be a lot closer to this foot in distance, but they don't look bigger one to the other. So, what do you think? Considering what we've seen on the last video, do you think that these are the necessary steps to do some really good foreshortening? I think that the two biggest secrets and the two most important things are the camera angle, how close your character are going to be to that fictional virtual camera that you're going to be used in your head. And second one, the context. Where is this character going to be? Because depending on what you want to fit in the composition that you're going to do, that is actually going to be choosing the camera angle for you. And from that point, once you have those two, you can use some anchor points like I did with the hand. So you can start placing the character in the space that you want them in, and then you can start using perspective lines and coiling and foreshortening and so on. So I'm going to be honest with you, I think that there's still a degree of winging it, like improvising when you're doing this foreshortening. I think that it involves a lot of practice and reference, like everything does. But if I had to choose the top things to consider when foreshortening, these are going to be it. It's going to be take perspective into consideration, take camera angle into consideration, and take the context that the character is going to be into consideration. And then you can just start, if you want to, you can start coiling or using the cylinders or using other volumes. But first, context. So that's going to be it for today. My name is Javi and I can draw. I'm really glad I did this video because I was a little bit scared, but now I feel a little bit more confident. I'll see you on the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!